everybody. Is this working? This is working, okay. Um, Thank you for the invite, and I'm sorry that Sammy's not here, but I'm glad he's not here. He's got the flu. And he called me earlier this week. We've had him in Atlanta, so I told our people there, treat him nice because I had to come down here. So today, we're going to try to do two things. I think we got enough time. He told me that some of you guys like to check out early, you know. I guess you got honeydew projects. This is a Saturday and that kind of thing. Well, we're going to try and do two projects. And one of the projects that we're going to do, the first project we're going to do is this. I call it a jewelry box. And the thing that makes it a little different than most that you see is that the way it's held on the lathe. It's going to be held on the lathe by expansion and contraction. And along with that, you can use that same process if you decide to make your Beads of Courage box out of all wood and you don't want to go to the pipe type method. You can take this, the way I'm going to do this box this morning is you can, if you don't have a piece of wood thick enough for about 4 inches, glue two pieces together, turn it that way. Okay. Okay. The other thing we're going to try and do is for all of the newcomers, and not newcomers, but folks that are used to going out buying bowl blanks and spending all that money. If you only do 1 or 2 bowls a year, well, buy bowl blanks. But there are trees coming down all over the place. The other method we're going to show you how we take a log, cut it in half, cut a circle, rough it out. This is wet. Rough it out, leave it wet. Let it dry. And I'm going to talk about the different methods. One, let it dry on its own, 5 or 6 months, it'll be dry. Or the alcohol method, not the drinking kind. That method, instead of 4 or 5 months, 4 or 5 weeks, it's down to 8-9%. Then along with that, what do I do with that once it dries and it warps? And I'll say this now, you'll probably forget it, but in some place it's going to ring your bell. When you get ready, once this is dry and you get ready to put it back on the lathe, and the reason we leave it thick so that we've got enough wood to turn the warp out and still have a bowl. The first thing you do when you redo this bowl, true up the tenon. The tenon warp too. I've had so many people who come back and say, okay, I turned the outside and I turned around and it wobbled all over the place. Did you true up the tenon? Yes. I go over to their shop and sure enough, they haven't done this. So if you don't remember anything else, once you put that dry bowl back on the lathe, true that tenon up first. Then do the outside, turn around, put it in the chuck. The outside's going to run true, then do the inside. So that's just one to remember. Okay, the way I've done, we're going to start with the jewelry box. We can call it a jewelry box or a box. I understand you guys are going to get Peggy in February. Peggy and I have been friends a long time. She's a very good turner, very good turner. A couple of pieces of figured maple that I got. And what I've done is I've already drilled a hole. Most of you are familiar with when you buy a chuck, there's a little screw in the box. I had mine almost 3 years before I realized what it was for. Being guys, if we buy something, it's got some parts in the box, we don't throw them away. Even if we don't know what to do with, we don't throw them away. And if you think about it, you buy a chuck, we buy all of this equipment, we buy tools and things, none of it comes with instructions. When's the last time you bought a tool and except the easy wood tools and you got instructions with it? You don't. You learn by coming to the meetings and watching somebody do it. And until it was 3 years before I saw somebody use this worm screw. The worm screw fits in a little slot in the chuck. And every chuck I know comes with one. You drill the appropriate size hole into the piece, the side that you're going to hollow out. I had a lady in a class of mine, we drilled a hole and then we did the side and then we turned around. And then once she got past that, she said, I was wondering how you're going to get rid of that hole, you know. So on with this, you're passing those boxes around. A couple of those are, I think, one is mesquite, the one that really doesn't, you can't really recognize it. It's got just a little, yeah, that one, that whole, that's mesquite. And the wood, it's got some good figure, but it was so light that I had to put just a little touch of color in it to pop the grain on it. The other piece is a piece of Purdue from Africa. And it's another thing you know about turning is I can turn a bowl and you can turn a bowl exactly the same, finish the same and everything. Why do they buy one as opposed to the other? The color, the figure. So after you get past that first 10 bowls, start looking at the wood. Look at the figure. See how the grain is running in the wood. And believe it or not, sometimes just a little bit of color will make all the difference in that bowl. Okay.
Question.
Yes, sir.
I've had a lot of problems on the worm screw because I always drill too big a hole. How do you determine?
Too big of a hole?
Yeah. And you know, the worm screw it'll strip out.
Okay. What
How do you determine what size hole?
Usually they come with the instruction. I know the one that comes with the one-way tools, which is a little fatter, takes a 3/8 inch screw. This one takes 5/8, I believe. It'll tell you in the box. If the hole is coming out of it, then you need a smaller drill bit. What you can do is take a set of calipers and measure the outside diameter here or the inside diameter of the threads and get a drill bit that just fits that.
Okay.
And that's what you need. It'll stay on. Okay. Okay.
Hardwood versus.
Pardon me?
It depends too on.
Yeah, on hardwoods and softwood, yeah. Well, you just, if it's hardwood, I just struggle with it. Okay. This is a piece of figured maple, and just like in all of our turning, the first thing we want to do is turn this around. Because you've got end grain and side grain, we don't use a roughing out gouge. Roughing out gouge, in fact, if you look in most of the books now, they don't call it a roughing out gouge anymore, they call it a spindle roughing gouge because it's for spindle work only. Be careful, there's some beautiful examples out on YouTube on how to use tools and that kind of thing, but there's some people I saw the other day, a guy turning the inside of a bowl with a roughing out gouge. No, you don't want to do that. So you use the right tools for the job. If I came across like just straight into this, I'm grain and okay. Side grain and end grain. So if I start on the side and the slicing cut across, I'm cutting across the straws instead of into the straws. Let's get this started. Okay. I just want to make that round. Bevel in the direction, but floating in the direction that I'm cutting. Turn to about 9:30, 10 o'clock, tool against my body. You'll notice that most of my turning today, I'm using my body, not just the old chicken wings out there. I've got the against my body. Take a light cut at first. Stop often and take a look, make sure nothing's going to fly off and hit you. Just keep going. And it looks like I'm pulling the tool. I'm not pulling the tool. I'm just holding the tool down on the tool rest. The right hand does all the work. The in and out, how deep I cut or how shallow I cut comes from here. This is just a pivot point. If you notice, I've got it against my body and my body's moving. I think it's round now. It is round. Okay. Well, I've got it on the worm screw. The chuck jaws that I've got in there, I want these to expand out into an expansion. I've got it marked. I need to mark that now. Ooh. Is it out of line yet?
Still okay.
Parting tool. I've measured with these. It's okay. If you're going to mark it with this, one of the ways you can do is you can mark it with this. Let the side towards you touch the wood. If the other side touch, you'll end up wearing them in your forehead, so don't do that. You want to do that so that you get a little mark there, match it on the other side. Just a little 1/16 of an inch parting tool. I want to make enough space in there so the top jaws fit flat against the bottom. That's about almost 1/8 of an inch. Then I've got a little tool. It's a little skew that I've marked. These jaws are dovetail jaws, so I'm going to make a little dovetail in here. Okay. There we go. Got my dovetail. That goes there. This is going to be the bottom. I always do the bottom first because if I do make it smaller than I want, or if I do the top first and I make the bottom piece a little bit smaller, they don't fit. So I make the bottom first, let it fit. So there's the little worm screw that comes out. And like I say, every chuck sold, now I don't know a chuck yet that comes without one. That fits in there, and that little 1/8 of an inch will hold. Same thing here. I've got this one piece. If I glued another, had this flat, glue another piece here, I'd be out here. That's your beads of courage box. If you want to make it out of all wood. The one with the PVC pipe, that's the first time I've seen that. And I'll have to take that back with me because we've always been making all of ours out of just all wood, stave construction, everything else. This is the bottom. And here I get to decide, well, I just want just a straight bottom and just a box. I could do that. The jewelry box gets a little fancier if I make a few other little changes where I put a couple of beads and coals and that kind of stuff. And I'll talk to you about beads. You don't have to go out and buy a beading tool. Being the tool person I am, I got to buy them all, you know.
Which one is the bottom? Which side?
This the bottom's in the chuck now. The bottom's in the chuck.
I thought you indicated this side.
Okay. Let us do this. First, I'm going to make my first bead on this. And a lot of us, when we first start turning, if I start a project, I've got to have everything I need to do that project. Oh, by the way, how many guys? There was one guy. This is your first time. Okay. They didn't read you. They didn't give you any alternatives. Or they didn't give you the disclaimer, did you? This meeting is free to you, right? If you leave now, that's all it's going to cost you. See, they're laughing because they know if you stay, unlike other woodworking, turning is addictive. If you got a shop already, the rest of your workshop will suffer. This is instant gratification because you can spend an hour or two and complete a project as opposed to those weekend projects that 3 months later are still going on, and our spouses always say, well, Norm did it in a half an hour. Okay. So they need to tell you that, you know, because later on you could come back and say, well, you guys didn't warn me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little bead down here on the bottom. That's a bead. Those little tools that you bought, this is a beading tool from, I think, the Carter people. But if you've got any any spindle gouge, the small ones, if you take it, put the point against the grinder and grind that point off, and then turn it over, you got a beading tool. And for years and years, this is what I used to make beads, and I had them in different sizes so I could do that. And but they finally came out with beading tools. So you don't have to go out and buy, well, I think they're about $60 a piece each tool. So I got my first bead there, and I want to come back and take away some material to accent that bead. Tool against my body. A little more. Okay, that's the first bead. Okay. It really never looks good with just one, so I'll make another one. I'll make the other one just a little bit smaller than that one. Go and accent that bead. Okay, there's my second bead. Now, I have to make a decision here. Am I going to have the lid fit inside, or am I going to have the lid fit over the outside? Let's see. That one, the lid fits down inside, 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 inside. Okay. Get a little bit of a curve in here. Careful going against that wall. Okay, got my little curve, go back the other way. When we first start turning, or even after we've been turning a while, everybody always says, oh, you always cut downhill, which is the case that most time. I always said, cut the wood the way it wants to be cut. There are days where cutting downhill, you don't get the best cut. Change, if something's giving you a hard time, change the angle that you cut, and whatever gives you the smoothest cut at the time is the right cut for that job. Okay, got a little line. And if you notice, all my cuts are bevel rubbing cuts. Just a little slope. Okay. Okay, this was a project that I had intended to do years and years ago, and I kept putting it off, and then about 18 months ago, the guy that I'd seen do it out in Kansas City came to our club to do this, to share how he made this little jewelry box. Well, like I said, we got 3 clubs lined up, and we get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday together. And we got together, and we all share the cost of getting the demonstrator there. Well, he did everything except the jewelry box. So I finally said, I'll go out on my own, I'll fix it. And what happened was, the first time I did it, I came up with this, I'm going to put some beads on this thing. And I lucked out in the beads, and that's why it has, I call it an oriental flare. I've got another one where I've got a bead here, and this kind of bows out, and another bead at the top. So the design is yours. My thing about design is, I'm not a true artist. I'm a technician. I know what I like in the end, but until I get there, I usually start my classes off with telling everybody I have to tell you the story, because if I don't tell you the story and I say this later on, you won't know what I'm talking about. A friend of mine turned a bear for me out of a piece of walnut. And I said, how did you do that? He says, I just turned away what wasn't the bear. So I tell everybody, when you're working on something, turn away what's not there. What do we? I'll see if, okay, there we go. So just get, if nothing else, get a piece of paper, get a chalkboard, and draw what you think you like. Put some lines, erase, until you get what you like. And then go back to it. And that's my thing on design. Some people who can look at a piece of wood and says, oh, this is what I see in that wood. Hey, my hat goes off to them. Okay, I'm going to put a little bead here at the top. So, okay. Get a little bit of a curve in here. Careful going against that wall. Okay, got my little curve, go back the other way. When we first start turning, or even after we've been turning a while, everybody always says, oh, you always cut downhill, which is the case that most time. I always said, cut the wood the way it wants to be cut. There are days where cutting downhill, you don't get the best cut. Change, if something's giving you a hard time, change the angle that you cut, and whatever gives you the smoothest cut at the time is the right cut for that job. Okay, got a little line. And if you notice, all my cuts are bevel rubbing cuts. Just a little slope. Okay. Okay, this was a project that I had intended to do years and years ago, and I kept putting it off, and then about 18 months ago, the guy that I'd seen do it out in Kansas City came to our club to do this, to share how he made this little jewelry box. Well, like I said, we got 3 clubs lined up, and we get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday together. And we got together, and we all share the cost of getting the demonstrator there. Well, he did everything except the jewelry box. So I finally thought I'll go out on my own, I'll fix it. And what happened was, the first time I did it, I came up with this, and said, I'm going to put some beads on this thing. And I lucked out in the beads, and that's why it has, I call it an oriental flare. I've got another one where I've got a bead here, and this kind of bows out, and another bead at the top. So the design is yours. My thing about design is, I'm not a true artist. I'm a technician. I know what I like in the end, but until I get there, I usually start my classes off with telling everybody I have to tell you the story, because if I don't tell you the story and I say this later on, you won't know what I'm talking about. A friend of mine turned a bear for me out of a piece of walnut. And I said, how did you do that? He says, I just turned away what wasn't the bear. So I tell everybody, when you're working on something, turn away what's not there. What do we? I'll see if, okay, there we go. So just get, if nothing else, get a piece of paper, get a chalkboard, and draw what you think you like. Put some lines, erase, until you get what you like. And then go back to it. And that's my thing on design. Some people who can look at a piece of wood and says, oh, this is what I see in that wood. And hey, my hat goes off to them. Okay, I'm going to put a little bead here at the top. Before so I know where to cut to. When I first started turning, making a bead with a tool like that was frowned on, They wanted you to do that with a spindle gouge. Okay. Because one of the things I do before I get done here, I want to get this piece as close to sanding as possible. So I'm going to use a little negative brake scraper in here to clean that area up, get my little bumps and bruises out of there.
What would you do different if you wanted the lid to fit on the outside of the bottom?
Well, I just make that straight up or make an indention, make like a little indention where the lid would fit and maybe have the lid overhang or have it just fit just like a regular box. You fit a regular box, it came down even. That's all up to you. That's a decision that you can make. I left this little bit on the top because I'm going to take that away. So now before I take that off, this is the part where we get a chance to waste away some wood. And I always say, use your best method, your easiest way to do this. We're going to do a couple of different ways of getting this out. First, I want to just bevel lined up with the line I'm trying to cut, tool rolled over to maybe the 1:30, 2 o'clock position, come back, pick up my cut. I want that first portion out there to be flat. After that, now it's just like hollowing out a bowl. For safety's sake, all cuts on the inside of a bowl, all the cuts should come from the right-hand side of the tool. Everybody always talks about David Ellsworth cuts on the left-hand side of the tool. If you watch David and you watch his DVDs, it's only that final cut that comes from the left. Because when you cut on that left side, you're cutting at 1159.5 degrees. You go to 1159, massive catch. So to make things safer, line the bevel up. Cuts come from the inside, from the right-hand side of the tool. Tool starts to bounce. Two things are happening. You're taking too big of a cut, or you're pushing the tool faster than it can cut. Normally, I would go on that way, but here's a chance for the Easy Wood tool to shine. The big two mistakes we make with the Easy Wood tool, the cutting edge should be parallel to the floor. Down a little bit is all right. Point it up, it will eat your lunch. And you cannot take big cuts with it. Each one of those is about a 32nd of an inch cut. Maybe up to a 16th.
Do you find that the easy wood cuts as good on a push as it does on a pull?
Well, it's doing the same thing. Either way you're going, if I'm just moving it this way or that way.
Well, I find with Hunter, I get a better cut with a pull than I do with a push on my fine.
Well, the Hunter is at an angle too. Isn't the Hunter tool at an angle? That's a different tool altogether. Okay. Now I'm getting down here, and the thing is, I'm getting a halfway decent surface. Excuse me, out here. One of the things you do have to remember is the Easy Wood tool is never going to give you the cut that a slicing cut off of a spindle gouge, a bowl gouge, or a skew will give you. So just buy a little extra sandpaper, that's all I say. I'm getting down here, I'm going to take some more out of here. And the thing is, get as much handle as you can. Now, part of my design is I make a lot of boxes, and the one thing I found out about boxes, if it's especially small, and you put little stuff in there when you get ready to get something out, if I make a 90-degree corner in there, stuff gets stuff in there. So I usually have mine rounded over a little bit. Come back to finishing and flocking. The flocking there, Woodcraft sells it. Everybody sells it. There's a company in, I think it's Bloomington, Illinois, that sells every color in the rainbow. And the flocking goes where you finish your piece, you sand it. And the secret there is you seal the surface. You seal the surface. Then there's a two-part thing for the flocking. One is you buy the color that you want. That's the little fluffy stuff. Then you buy the I call it the seal or the glue or whatever. That is the same color too, because if you use a white and use a green, you're going to have something like that doesn't match. So when you buy the flock, buy the color glue that matches that on. You put that on a surface that's been sealed. The first time I did it, I did not seal the wood. Unbeknownst to me, it sucked up the glue. So I sprayed the flock in there, and I let it sit for 24 hours, and I tapped it out. Where it soaked up the glue, the flock didn't stick. So when you do it, make sure the surface is nice and it's sealed. Sanding seal or something, because you want that glue to sit on top of the surface, not soak into the wood. Okay. Pardon me?
Are you going to put a finish on there or just a standard seal?
Sanding sealer. Yeah, but there's no need, if you're going to put a flock it, you don't need to do a finish. You know? I've got a little tool here that allows me to, I can get in that slide and it tells me how deep I am. Oh, that's 14, 15 millimeters there yet to go. And here, instead of trying to see where I'm cutting here, I look at the other side at the amount of material coming off, and I let that be my guide. I think I measured this in the wrong place. It's giving me that hollow sound that says you're thin. No. This, I think Craft Supply out of Provost has it. Somebody has it. I mean, I don't remember. How's that? I've had the thing for years. That's 9 millimeter. I want to get down to about 5.
Why are you leaving the edge so thick?
I'm going to go back to. I'm going to go back and get to. Well, could be to hold those heavy diamonds you're going to put into it. Yeah.
In my case, I'll need a thin one.
Now this tool is better for that job, and all of this is just a skew. This edge has been sharpened against a stone, and it allows me to go straight down. Come back with get that corner as smooth as I can get it. That's still fairly thick. We'll go back in here. This time the Woodpecker Tools, which is an offshoot of the Easy Wood Tools, has a flat edge, and it has one at a 45 degree. That cuts a little cleaner in some cases. Oh, that's much cleaner, much cleaner. Okay. Let's see this. Get which way this thing goes. Okay. Here we go. It's still fairly thick. One little final cut. Got my little rounded corner. Take just a little more out of here.
Frank,
Yes.
hold that tool up where we can see how the edge of it, what it looks like. Okay.
There you go. There you go. There you go. It's just a converted scraper, fat skew. And I'm gonna just leave that little indention in there. Like, okay. Now, if I was finishing this, I'd finish this, sand it, take that off. The thing about it is, as you go along, I could take this off, and if I want to do something to it again, I can stick it right back on and work on it some more. We'll pass it down to the side. They may want to see it too. Okay. Now this is the top piece. Two things happen with the top. The top, instead of hollowing this out, the top piece doubles as the top, but also doubles as a knob, which once I shape this a little bit, put a tenon on here, it gives me, I can turn around, do the inside, put another little expansion joint, finish the top, go back and forth. And as long as I've got those tenons there, I can go back and forth as much as I want. And that's another thing about that screw. You've got to get down in the slot. If it's not down in the slot, it will wobble loose on you.
Move past the bottom around.
What's that? Oh, yeah, sure. Hang on. Jim. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to need it right away. Okay. Just for safety, just bring that up temporarily. Here again, we do make this round. Okay, that's round. A tenon so it fits that chuck. That's good. Now, the quick and easiest way to make a tenon is, many of you have heard the name Stuart Batty. Stuart explained to me why I do it this way. If I take this tool, and this is a 40-degree angle here, 40, he calls this cut the 40-40. If I push it across, it acts like a big parting tool, but here it acts like a skew. and I get a nice clean cut. So it's just like cutting with a skew, nice and smooth, but I shaved away the wood with that 45-degree angle there. It's just the right hand, not the left hand. The right hand just holds it down. An old scraper, just cut at an angle, allows me to come in here. Make my 90-degree corner in there. And then swing it back. Flat surface for the face of the jaws to sit on. This eventually will be the knob, or further down, will be the knob that sits on the top of that box. It's running pretty true. Just temporarily, I will bring up this for my first few cuts. Have to decide how I want this to go. I need that piece back just for a moment. I want to test the fit. Thank you. And this is definitely where you want the side toward you to touch. Oh, it's luck, 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 luck. Way off, okay. I'll get it, don't. Yeah,
That's on purpose.
that's on purpose. You don't want a tight fit. I want a tight fit now, but in the end, I don't want a tight fit. You want to be able to pick it up with the knob. The only people that want tight fits are wood turners. People want to be able to reach down a box and take the lid off. They don't want to have to pick the thing and pry it apart.
If it's a little loose, that's not a bad thing.
No, that's the way it should be. Especially with this, you don't want to pick up this whole box to look at something. You just want to be able to take the top off, and that's just about there. Now, and the reason I'm doing it this way, this allows me to see how much of an overhang. I've been known to say, okay, that's finished. No, I put it back, take some more, till it looks right to me. So what I'm going to do now is, okay, I can do that way, but before I do that, I can put my little mark up here.
So what mark are you making now?
This mark is for the first little expansion tenon I'm going to put in on the inside. A little dovetail again. That squealing sound is because I'm hung over the tool rest. Okay, so I think I'm going to attack it. There are two ways I do this sometime. I'm going to do it just the opposite way I not normally do it, but this particular time. Take this off. Australian chucks, they are opposite of what we do. We go righty-tighty, they're different. And I always say, well, what do you expect from a country to start out as a penal colony? What's that?
Jimmy says that's just the English. It's all backwards.
Okay. Now, the reason I did that is because it allows me to see how much of an overhang, and I can shape the outside and go back. Okay. And to save you a little time and money, this top piece does not have to be as thick as the bottom piece. Those were just the two pieces I had. And this is where you get a chance to decide what kind of slope your bear is going to have on it. I know that's too much of an overhang, so I'm going to take and I'm going to have that slanted. I'll do that after I turn it around. This is where I get a chance to decide how much of a cathedral type effect that I want, or something fairly flat. Okay, pretty good cut there. Let's see. Excuse me. Okay. Okay. There's this curly maple and it wants to tear, so I've got to figure out how to cut this so that minimum amount of tear out. It doesn't want to work that way. A sharper edge. It's kind of a shear scrape. A little bevel rubbing, but not that much. Round it over. That I can sand out, I believe. Just trying to get that Get it ready to sand. Okay, that's pretty much that. Cut that at an angle. Okay. I'm going to leave that there. This is kind of the last thing that comes off. Usually wiggles around a little bit, but that's not a problem. Okay. So I want to kind of hollow that out to match the outside curve that I've got there. Get a little nub like that, go push across it, don't come up under it. If you come up under it, it'll roll up on the tool in your bowl or whatever, it'll go flying across the room. I drilled that kind of deep, didn't I?
If the wood blank is not finished thick, would you use the spacer and?
Yes.
And it's probably, well, we can sit it down anyway, because it's gonna be nice.
Okay, there we go. Okay, let's do this. Another little dovetail in here. unless it's another Turner, somebody would just think that's the way the inside of that was designed. Okay, this little piece of paper on here. Let me take this off. Okay. Spindle gouge, spindle. Little undercut there. Take a look. The paper's off there. Take the corner off. Get rid of that tight fit. This allows you to do this. A little thicker than I want it. There we go. Now, I'd sand that. Nope, wrong one. That one. This is like a spindle gouge without the little middle part in there. What this allows me to do is go in there, and because I don't have the sharp edges like I would have there, it minimizes the amount or the chance of a catch. Okay. And it just and then, like I say, in the end, it allows me to take that off. If I was finished sanding, usually sand as I go. I would go back, do all my sanding, inside and out, put this back on, and complete the top. You guys, do you have somebody that, another fundraiser is that the pieces that the demonstrator do, if you take those and have somebody in the club finishes them, then you auction it off, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave this here so the person can put it on his chuck at home, do all the sanding, put it back, the bottom two.
Before you take it off, Frank, something caught my, if you put it back up,
Yeah,
and I'm not taking over your class.
no,
I
yeah,
just noticed something for myself, for the more artistic guys like Don.
yeah.
If you could bring that up, Gerald, would this get some ideas on what, right here? You made me drunk, like I said. First time in 30 years. This area right here, is if you didn't wanna, if you wanted to bring it down, what, this would be a good time to like do an inset, or to carve.
Oh, yeah, could do your carving,
burn, you know,
or your burns.
put a sandy flower right, you know, there's
In,
finial.
in fact, I had,
Ain't no hijack
yeah,
the class.
well, I had one group where the guy took and he just put beads across the top, all the way across the top, yeah, like that.
That would be a good thing.
Yeah, but here again, that's left to your imagination. There's all kinds of things you can do.
Apologize.
No. Like I like. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Loose fit. And because I do still have those expansion places, I can always go back in here, do some more work or want it. But that's the way that's done. And like I said, if you want to make an all wood Beads of Courage box and you don't have a piece 5 inches thick, glue 2 pieces together and do the same thing.
What type of finish would you finish that with?
Without being a smart aleck, let's see. The easiest finish I could do. Finishing is, it's terrible, but it's the one thing that we don't learn to do. And you ask anybody, what finish do you use? The finish he gives you, or that she gives you, is the finish that they found that works for them. They aren't going to change it unless you can show them a way to do it easier and faster. That's why there's so many different finishes out there. People have learned different ways. So consequently, if you find one that works for you, you aren't going to change this. But one of the things that I do on the boxes like this, and you notice that one there, I go on with the sanding sealer first. If you want something to shine, that has nothing but, we don't have time for it today. Usually with my log to a bowl thing, I do rough out a piece, take the warp out of a piece, have a piece that's sanded, and you've heard of the Beal buffing system? After I do the sanding sealer, I go with the Beal buffing system and wax. That's all that piece has on it. It's Beal buffing system and wax. That's all. Those are my finishes. And the thing is, if you use the sanding sealer and the wax, and somebody said, well, I want to finish with lacquer, you can come back with paint thinner or any one of the other abrasives and take it off, wipe it off, and come back with a shellac finish, buff that out, and everything sticks to shellac. One of the old guys, he's no longer with us, taught me that. He says, if you got a finish, he said, I don't care what kind of finish you got, you put shellac over it, you can spray or put anything on top of shellac. Now, if a person wants one of those hand rub finishes like crazy, then you go that way. But that's what I do there. So if whoever your designated person is, get them to finish this and have an auction. I would come in with some color. So it would pop. This is curly maple. It'll pop the grain on it. It'd be a nice little thing at an auction. We save ours until the Christmas party and that kind of stuff, and we auction it off there. And usually we get a pretty good little go at it.
While you're holding that, Frank, just briefly explain the floppy.
The flocking is, okay. The inside, the flocking is just, I would sand this, put a sanding sealer on, usually shellac. And you want to have this, the wood sealed before you do anything to it, because the flocking system, it comes, they've got the glue that comes into a can, and then they've got the material that you blow on with a little brush. And I said, get yourself a great big plastic bag to put it in, because it wants to go everywhere, and you want to be able to save what overflows. Well, you take a brush, and then you take tape, masking tape, and tape off where you don't want the glue to be. Put the glue on, and you got about 15, 20 minutes. Then you got this little thing, this little pump, it's got a little hole in there, and it sprays the stuff out. And you spray that stuff on as thick as you can, and let it sit for 24 hours, then come and thump it out, take a nice little soft brush and brush away what's not there.
Does the glue apply with the brush?
Brush, yeah, brush of some kind. But like I say, if you go Woodcraft and all those people, they have limited colors. They usually have the Kelly green, the black and white, and some reds. But the company, if you just go to flocking, you'll give you this company in Illinois, and they have every color in the rainbow. And when you buy, pick the color you want, pick the glue that matches that color. But it's easy to do. It's easy. The whole secret, because the first time I did it, I didn't do it. I didn't seal it. And I come back and I said, what happened, you know? And Cole, I told Mr. Baxter, and he said, well, did you seal it? And he says, no. That's why it didn't stick. Okay? Okay?
Have you found one color more popular than another?
This color, Kelly green.
Most popular.
It's the most popular one. Because you see that color and you think of a pool table. So want to take a look at, and like I said, with the indentions there, you can put it back on the lathe and take away more or sand, and hold it to sand it, and do whatever you need to do with it, and finish the top.
Frank,
Yes.
pass around your bowl depth, your gauge,
Which gauge?
the one you're using to check the depth of the
Oh. You could use that or use this one. This one works just as well.
I've seen those, I've never seen something like that.
I don't know how long I've had.
Reset, Mr. Frank.
No, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Here you go.
We need 5 minutes bathroom break.
Okay, let's do that.
We'll take a 5 minute.
Over here.
What kind of wood is that?
No.
Pounds wood.
It's willow. This is the flat piece you cut off. Then you put a little circle on there. Cut yourself a circle like that, and you got a bowl blank. Remember that this is going to be fairly wet. Who lost? Who got lost? Okay. Okay.
How did you cut that out like that?
Bandsaw. Oh, they didn't tell you. That's this. After you buy your lathe, then you buy a grinder, then a bandsaw. Or you can cut it round as you can with a chainsaw. You just got some bumps in there to get it. Yeah. You just
This is that picture. Oh, okay.
okay.
Then you buy a better leg. You just keep going here when you go.
You know that you talk about chucks. You guys have had Nick Cook down here, haven't you? Well, Nick was my mentor, one of my mentors, and I was in his shop one day, and he says, "Oh, I need a different set of jaws for these." So he goes over to this cabinet. He's got a cabinet full of chucks. And he says, if you can change the jugs, why do you need all those chucks?
She doesn't like.
He says, you'll understand. Last count, I think I got 23 chucks. You saw 2 of them today. You saw those, and those are fairly new. Those are less than 6 months old. Okay.
I gotta ask, what's the green on those chucks? Is that part, you don't sell them?
Oh, no. That's the tape so that when I look around, I get ready to pack up. If it's got green on it, I know it's mine.
So all we have to do is pull that green off. Green,
Ah! Okay.
did I say that out loud?
Now, I'll have to watch that guy right there. Yeah. Okay. And we do the same thing here. This is not as wet as you normally would get it, but it's got a lot of moisture in it. And you get a piece of wood, what you want to do is turn it and say like this is, leave it about an inch, inch and a quarter thick. Inch thick, and you leave it that thick so that once it dries and it warps, you have enough left to turn the warp out and still have a bowl. That's the only reason you leave it thick. Now, my method for drying, you can let this sit for 6 or 7 months and it'll be down to 8%. Or you can put it in denatured alcohol for 4 hours, take it out, and in 4 to 6 weeks, it's down to 8%.
What about the microwave I've heard about?
Oh, no. Don't do that. First of all, if you're in the market for a divorce, yes. Second of all, most people put it in there too long. Now, I have done I've experimented with some thin stuff that I've got turned down to about 1/8 of an inch thick, put it in the microwave, 1.5 minutes. It comes out as smoldering. You let it cool completely. Put it back in 45 seconds. Still smoldering, and you let it cool completely. And you do that. And the one piece this particular first time I did it, I started about 10 o'clock in the morning, and about 5 o'clock that evening, I had it down to 8% in the microwave. 45 seconds each time after the 1.5 minute and 15 seconds. Any more than that, you're trying to start a fire or get smoke and stuff. You don't want to do that. And the only reason I did that, the demonstrator was doing it, so I decided to try it. And it'll work out for super thin stuff, but I would not try that with thick stuff.
When you take it out of the denatured alcohol, do you just set it on the shelf or do
No.
you go pack it?
Well, I forgot to tell you. I put it in what I call a quiet place. Quiet place means there's no air passing by it. It's not in the sun, just by itself. I don't pack it in anything. Just let it sit there. And the theory behind that is, you guys don't get it much. In September in Chicago, in the northern cities, they have a run on this little can of red stuff that you put in your gas tank. It's supposed to get rid of water. Well, it really doesn't get rid of water. All it is alcohol. And what it does, it goes in there and it latches on to the water molecules. It holds on. And because alcohol evaporates faster, it just takes the water out faster. That's what happens there. Okay?
Soaking in alcohol, I've never really.
I got a big tub, water-made tub that I put it in. And the thing is, like paint thinner and stuff, you open the can in a room, you know it's open. This stuff does not evaporate. Like I've accidentally left it open, and I come back, oh God, and it hasn't moved at all. Eventually it will evaporate, but it does. Yes, sir.
The way you can do that without having to pay that big price is I got a tub about this big, what it is a cow mix. They set it out on things, put your sawdust,
Oh, okay.
shavings down in there, get one of those big thick, garbage bags. You put it down in there and then you put your bowl in there, then you put that, shavings all around.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
You don't have to buy all that, like a tub, you'd have $100 in that tub.
Now, we're talking about it.
Easy.
Flammable substance.
Easy. I've got that much in it. But what I started doing was, some of you guys know Mark Soleil. Mark used to have a tree business, and he still knows all these guys that take down trees, and they know what kind of wood we're looking for, the ambrosia maples, the box elder, and all that stuff. So when they get a job that he'll take a 10-foot section of a tree, you know, a nice cherry tree or something, and then give a guy $150 for it, $200 for it. The guy drops it off, or we'll go by and pick it up, and we'll cut it into bowl blanks, and we give the call goes out, and the people that want it come by and get some. And what he's trying to do, he gets enough money to pay back what he paid for. Then we rough out the rest of it. We'll call rough turn bowls. Jimmy Clue, not Jimmy Clues, but one of the guys out west, I can't remember his name right now, in Kansas City, he came in with these 2 crates of roughed out bowls, and they were gone in 2 hours. So I called him when I decided to do this, sell roughed out bowls at our symposium. And what I did, the way he prices them, he measures the width across and the depth. So if it's 10 inches across, 5 inches deep, 15 times 2, $30 for a roughed out bowl. I usually keep anywhere from 200 to 300 bowls. Some of you know Elizabeth. Elizabeth's at the wood show. And what Mike Hare, I got Mike to the first time put him in his booth. He sells all used tools and stuff. And Mike says, well, I'm not going to do it for you anymore. I said, why not? He says, you made more money in my booth than I did. And people know that I have roughed out bowls. And there was a little showdown in Noonan, and a guy, the first day out, he had 3 ladies come by, and they were looking for the old dough bowls, 15, 16-inch bowls. He didn't have any, so he called me this was a Thursday, the thing started on a Thursday. He said, well, you got it? He said, yeah, I got some. So he came over and picked them up, went home that night and roughed them out, and had them for sale at Saturday. Yeah. So.
You know what's crazy about it is turning green wind is way more fun than.
Yeah, this is a lot easier. You'll see this. Much easier turning this way. Oh. Okay. It's round.
How fast do you turn it, Brian?
And this is not joking around. I turn at a speed where I'm getting a nice shaving coming off and a speed that I'm comfortable at. Sometimes I'll say, okay, this is good enough for what I want to do, and I don't look at the speed. Now that's 870, almost 900 RPM, and that's good for what I want to turn here. That 40 cut. Okay. Now I'll come back and put a tenon on this thing. A lot of people say, well, why do you put... I put the tenon on first on all the work, whether it's wet or dry. I've seen people go, and they come up with the design and shape and everything. Is now I'm going to put my tenon on, and the tenon ends up being a part of the form. So they got to go back and reshape the whole thing. So the first thing I do is put the tenon on. Whew. Whew. Sorry about that. Screwing itself in. Here again, I want my nice 90-degree corner in there. This is not a dovetail. Okay.
Is there a reason why you're not using your dovetail? You like the straight?
Well, this particular chuck doesn't take the dovetail.
Right.
I didn't bring the dovetail jaws for that one with me. Well, I've been using the straight jaws for years. I've just maybe the past year started using the dovetail, and I'm just starting to trust them. Okay. Okay, here we go. I got this, and I usually come around and I make what I call the maximum height of my bowl. Okay, and when I'm teaching a class, I usually put a line there, and that's for the student. That's a no-cut line. After I get around, it's a no-cut line. And I say that's a no-cut line because if they're going along taking off wood, they go back to the top every time instead of starting where they need to take off wood. And I tell them that's a no-cut line because every time you go back there, your bowl gets smaller. That's the only reason for the no-cut line. And I do it so much that I just do it when I do it now. Okay?
Can you show us where that line is? I didn't see it.
Okay. See it there?
Is that halfway up or?
No, no, no. As much of the top as I can get. As much of the top as I can get. That's as much bowl as I can get out of there. Then I come back to this. There are a couple of things here is I can come in here and put where I think will be my foot. Okay. That may end up being smaller. It can't be any larger than that, but that's what I'm planning now for this bowl to sit on. And staying with that cutting downhill, walk the tool around. It's okay. It's not flat up here. Make sure it's round before you put your no-cut line on there. This is where your creativity or lack of comes into play. This is just make the shape you want. Okay. One of the things you don't want to do, you don't want to leave sharp lines on a piece because if it wants to crack, that's where it wants to start. That's the outside shape. Pick this. Okay. Oh. Oh. Okay. Not quite big enough, not quite small enough. Gotta go back. I usually have a little tool I measure that with, and I didn't use that time. One inch eight. One and eight. Yeah. Because the chuck says is a 1 inch. One.
We got some inserts there in our,
And just remember that when you turn, this is after it's dry, and I'll tell you about that when I put the dry piece on there. Now, if this was dry and I shaped the outside, that's not a lot, but if I was making this super, super thin, that much of a wobble would show up. You could see two sides smaller than the other, but because I'm just roughing this out, that's not that much. What's that? Yeah. And it's going to bounce around until you get it flat. Oh, that's why it's wobbling. Maybe not. And this is where turning is fun, because the wood is wet and it wants to just peel out of there. careful, folks. We were talking, the guy from British Columbia, and we were teasing. He said, "Ooh, that's Ketch." Art Leesman, some of you know him. I said, "Art, how do you say catch in, how do you say catch in Canada?" He says, no, I says, catch, is that a new word in French? He looked at me. I said, because we don't use that. So, show you how things get around. A month later, I'm doing a demo, and Nick tells me, he says, "I understand a catch is a Canadian term." So I laugh. Then last 2 years ago, the guy from France was here, and I says, how do you say catch in French? And he says, "We don't." No, we don't. One more little cut there. Clean up this top. Leave sharp edges away.
That wood is pungent.
Pardon me?
That wood is pungent.
Yeah. Take that, put this in the denatured alcohol. And my method, I said 4 hours. I usually put an hour per quarter of an inch. Take it out, just dry it off, put it in a nice quiet place. But that's the way the roughed out bowl starts. Then, hopefully, 6 months later, you got a dry bowl. I'm selling bowls all the time, so I need to be sure that they are dry, you know. And so I weigh them, and I take a moisture meter reading. And this is just a jam chuck. It's a piece of wood with a tenon on it. It's got a mouse pad on it, that's all. And remember what I said before? The most important thing when you do this, line up the foot first. This little hole where the live center was, that's the last thing to leave the bowl. Bring this up. In that little hole.
Why didn't you do your jam chuck curve with a curved face instead of flat?
Because I want this, I got it sitting. This is a little lower than I know. I usually, if I'm in the shop, I use one a little bit bigger. I want this against there so I can establish this and the outside. I want it flat against that. Oh, you just want it flat. But you can see how much the wood shrank or moved a little bit. Okay, now the fun part. Remember I said the tenon is the first thing you do. Do that first. This one all right? Is this right? Okay. Okay. I want you to know I got scolded while you weren't looking. But he told me in the beginning not to do that, and I forgot.
He does that to all of us. He comes up and
Okay. Okay. And you hear already the wood is much harder to cut because it's dry. Okay. Flat area for the jaws of the chuck to sit on. Okay, that might be a little too deep, so I'll take a little bit of it away. You don't want the tenon to bottom out in the chuck. Okay. I have not found a way of starting at the top without getting beat up real bad. So I start from here and go up, which is against the grain. Once I get the general shape, then I'll come down the side here. Kind of a pull cut, handle as vertical as I can. Nice color, okay. Ambrosia maple. And the thing is, I can't watch the cut here. If I watch the cut there, I don't know how much I'm taking off. So I have to look at the silhouette up there to see and I'm adjusting the tool as I go along, so I take off the minimum. Okay, there we go. Almost the top. See how much I got it there and hardly any off over there. So I'm gonna have to go in a little bit. So I've got it round. Okay. A little flat spot there. Here again. That's the maximum bowl I can get out of that piece. So I'm not fooled by it. Let me. Now I can come back and shape the outside of my bowl. Okay, there's the outside of my bowl. Okay. Probably half of that's going to go away. Right now, I'm going to let that be it. See how much smoother the cut is going downhill as opposed to coming up grain. At that, I can probably start 150, 120 grit and go through to 400. That'd be a nice finish on there. Don't let the oxidized piece fool you, because in the beginning it looked like it was dark. You could hardly barely see those pieces in there. I normally leave it like this until I do the inside. Sometimes I'll just have this curve in a little bit more, that a little smaller. It all depends. Let's see. I'm not going to get tricked this time. I'll take a little more off here. See what happened? See how the inside looks? It doesn't look very attractive at all, but then when you turn the oxidized piece away, it's gone. You don't want the tenon to bottom out in the chuck, because that's not a true center. Okay. See, I've done that. That's bottom a little bit. That's running pretty good, because I made that 90-degree in there. If this is a dovetail, you got to make that dovetail perfect. If you don't, the bowl's going to wobble. If it wobbles, then you're going to have two walls that are thicker than the other two. Whatever area you're going to work on, nice little thin cuts to start. I got a lot to take off there. Don't try to take a little at a time. I don't know, can you see how much the bowl has warped from the time it dried? Okay. Now, I don't know why, and maybe somebody who can tell me why, a flat rim that goes flat doesn't work. It's either got to be slanted in, slanted out, around it. Nobody can tell me why a flat rim doesn't look well.
I can.
Why?
It has to do with the perception of your, what they're trying to do is either draw your vision into the bowl,
Okay.
or keep your vision, your attention to the outside of the bowl.
Oh, okay,
It's got a lot of grain on the outside, you wanna cant, if you would.
okay,
And it also opens it, when you can it to the outside like this, it, by illusion, if you would, it
Uh-huh.
opens the bowl up.
okay.
Makes it look bigger, but it makes you draw your eye to the outside. In reverse, if you can it to the inside, the outside can be all right, but it makes you automatically your eye is drawn because of that form.
Oh, okay. That's the first time, I ask that every time. That's the first time anybody's ever explained that, okay.
He just made that up.
Well, opinions vary, but I try.
So now what we want to do now, I got a lot to cut out. You cannot take or shouldn't try to take it all out at once. Here again, bevel lined up with the outside of the bowl. Go at about an inch and a quarter. Not solid wood down there yet. That hollow sound you hear is the wood starting to scream and rattle on you. But I've got it round there. Now I have to decide how thick I really want this thing. Okay. Okay. That's thicker than it looks because it's not just there. I've got that portion out there too. Inside or outside slope?
Probably I would can it out.
Okay.
That's where you figure. Mostly you figure and not opinion.
Okay. Okay. Okay, got that outside. Now I'll come back and establish my wall thickness here. Here again, I'm not looking here, I'm looking over there at the amount of wood that's coming off. Because to see that, I'd have to do this. And I just see the shaving, I still couldn't tell how much wood I was taking off. So I look here, get it started, then look at the other side. Okay. Okay. Let me do something real quick here. Take this edge off. Need a little thinner than that. Okay, that's as good as it's gonna get. When I used to teach a class up at Campbell, I have a section we put a 2-inch thick piece of wood on, just flat, and have people practice going from the side to the center, just straight across. 2 millimeter cut every time. You go through, halfway through the first, you get through 1 inch, and you finally get the tool control down. Nice clean cut. But that's one way to practice. Okay. That bouncing, I was taking too big of a cut. Okay. That's even there. Okay. This tool is going to work all right, but we've got a tool that we call the bottom feeder, because to going from here to there, to keep the bevel rubbing, if I did that, the tool will bump into the side here, but because that's shorter, I can go there and go right on across without the problem. I call this the 5-second, 15-second tool, because that's all you need it for, is that one little sweep across there. Okay. That way you keep the bevel rubbing it all the time. And I can see right now that bottom's I'm gonna bring the bottom up a little bit. I like the shape inside there a little bit better. Let's see. Okay. Get to the middle, push across. Don't sit there and drill a hole, because you end up drilling a little hole, then you got to take everything down to that hole. So it's better, you can sand a little bump out a lot easier than you can. Okay, that we can sand out. What's that?
Everybody find you a screen that you can see. We were talking about scanning a ram in or out. Obviously, he made it a little bigger because he had to fan it out.
Yeah.
But how many, I would like an opinion, is that because of the way he did turn it out, does that bowl look like it's opened up bigger than,
Yeah.
or does it give the illusion?
I'll agree with you on that one, yeah.
Who
Okay.
thinks it looks more open that way?
Yeah. Okay.
How many don't really care?
Wow, that's terrible. Because the bottom is a little bit, usually I'm sanding in between, like when I do the outside, and I sand that before I turn it around. Then I make the inside match the outside, but this is a little, it ended up being a little deeper than I want. Let's see.
Frank, do you always do your, your final exterior shape like you got it now in the jam truck? Seems like when I, put a pin on there and turn it around, it's a little different.
That had, see, in this one, 90 degrees. The other chucks, perfect. What's the angle chuck? No, yeah, the Novatech. That angle has to be perfect 90 degrees here, in a sharp corner. If it's not, it's going to wiggle on you every time. See, that's still running pretty true. So what I'm going to do is go in here, take out just a little bit more of that. And that's going to probably be the final foot on that bowl. Still a little heavy in the bottom, but if I have to, I can go back. But that's the log to a bowl. Now, this is sanded. This is where I get out the Beal buffing system, and I run through, or it's all sanded. If you come in here and you put a sanding sealer on this now, and then go through the Beal buffing system and the wax, it'll be nice and shiny. But this one's not finished. Take a look. That's a log to a bowl. Any questions?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.